Hi guys and welcome back to I Am Kaza. In this channel we often or always, I would say, talk about high-end watchmaking and especially stories. And what you're gonna see today fits both criteria because we're gonna talk about Bida, a brand I'm really close to, for many reasons you're gonna discover in this video alongside with the watches. I cannot talk about Bida without giving you a brief story that is really part of my life. So it was 2020, I would say, in Milan. I was about to start my business, I Am Kaza, and I was looking for watches that had personality, watches that were different, and watches that had stories to tell. And I was browsing Instagram, right, like every one of us, and I bumped into my nowadays friend, Sohaib Magnum, who had a small brand. He was designing, conceiving his own watches. And I was like, wow, how cool that could be. But I only saw the brand name on the page. So I texted over to this Instagram account and literally someone replied me telling me they were based in Milan, my hometown. And also, we can say at the same university. And that was beyond cool. So we met up at a bar next to Arco della Pace. And we became friends. And why am I telling this? Because today Sohaib is the head of design of Bida, and the first time I saw Bida on Instagram with a new watch, I didn't know he was the head of design, and I literally sent him the watch to tell him this has something to do with you. And yes, Sohaib met Hader, who is the owner of the brand, who's a great guy who I say thank you for having me to this year and every other year. And together they're really building up something very, very much on point and well made. And this to me is a key word about Bida. They're based in Qatar. They come from a watchmaking background somehow because they have taste, they have high standards, and they know really well what they're doing. If I had to describe the brand, I would tell people that they have kind of two different souls. One soul really embedded in the world of independent watchmaking, in the world of this kind of collecting, this kind of vibe that likes something different, something with a big twist and that has a lot of playfulness. And on the other hand, something that is classical yet contemporary and with very curated aesthetic. Therefore, today I brought you different watches from different collection. I brought you 5 pieces from 4 different collection that I'm gonna show you right now. The brand was launched as Bida in 2023. Therefore, here we are with the first piece I'm gonna present you. It was, and maybe still is, but let's not say that, my favorite piece. But why am I saying it's my favorite piece? Because as you can tell, as I told you, it has a story that has something to do with myself. So when I went to see this piece, it was also the first time in like 2 years I finally saw Sohaib in person again. So this is the first Eclipse. Why Eclipse? This, as you can tell, it's a watch with a very specific aesthetic. It looks a lot like a jumping hour, although it's a sliding hour in this window at 12. So the hour slides, the minute slides as well with this beautiful hand/disc. So this hand going all around with the form of a blued arrow. Very cool. And we have the 10 seconds going around in the window that brings up this playfulness. But why Eclipse? Because we have Superluminova underneath the steel plaque that really comes out at night, making a lunar eclipse, of course. The watch itself is really, really, really something that I like. Why? First of all, 37 millimeters. Perfect size in my opinion, very wearable, very everyday. Second of all, a super, super well finished case with an interesting and full of character aesthetic. If you take a look at the lugs, the whole case of course is in steel, but you can see all the different finishing around the watch. There's a lot to take in. There is the concave side of the case, there are the sandblasted and polished lugs with a beautiful shape. There is the plaque that is also sandblasted. We have a Sellita movement inside. The watch is pretty thin and all of the Beta watches come with a strap that is like outside of this world quality. And this I really appreciate, because many brands, especially in this price segment, which is around 2,000 euros, don't have that much quality and that many details all around the watch. If you take a look at the crown, it's super well finished. If you take a look at the window, it's well finished. The hand, the minutes, the Réo, well, and then Minotaur with this beautiful kind of sand vibe finishing. Everything is curated, and they have a philosophy, they have vision, and you can really see that they put a lot of effort and a lot of thought in what they do. They're not just doing watches for the sake of it. They're doing watches because they love what they do and they really want to express themselves. This was the first watch, and you can tell I'm passionate about it. I would wear it every day. I'm really looking forward to own one day. It's an incredibly cool looking watch. And again, it's steel, so it's also super wearable. It's modern, it's contemporary, it's independent. It's not boring at all, but it still is also a bit classic, not too far away from an aesthetic that is wearable every day. They played with this. They did a great job, in my opinion. But not only in my opinion, it was the first watch I saw everywhere on Instagram. A lot of people were talking about it. It was well received, and of course, it's a hell of a watch. It's a really cool watch, so kudos for that, but well done. And then another chapter came. So shaped watches. Here we have a lot of shapes in the lugs, but the case is round. And then we have another family of watches inside the Beta collection, which is the Fortress. I think you know what Fortress means, and I think you can relate to the fact that this watch has a lot to play with Fortress. It's a beautifully shaped watch, of course tank-ish vibe, with always one specific and super cool details, in my opinion, the case. We have a 2-pieces case with pretty good dimensions. It's 37 millimeters times 28 with 6.8 thickness, impressive, and it's manual winding. And that's the other thing I really like about Beta, the fact that they always bring something more to the table than what they did before. So they converted a Selite movement from being automatic to being manually wound, to be slicker, to be thinner, and they took out the date module as well to make it all coherent, all thin, and all good looking. So when I tell you guys you can have a nice watch without a date, doesn't take the word to make it, they did. And that's also a reason why I like them very much. So Fortress, we're talking about a different design, meaning the dial is completely different. We have exploded Arabic numerals that are carved into a dial. We have a beautiful finishing inside the dial, which is not really sunburst, it's not really soleil, but it brings out this vibe. We do have beautiful concave parts alongside the lugs, making the watch very sleek on the wrist, and it really looks cool in my opinion. Plus, big and super cool detail, the hands. You can see there is a lot going on in the hands. We have a beautifully polished part, we have a beautifully more matte part, and this to me is, alongside with the case, what really screams Fortress in my opinion. Plus the strap is totally different, amazing quality once again, and really nice cut here and topering that makes it super cool watch on a wrist in my opinion. The watch comes in different variation. My favorite one of them all is the blue one I have here, because come on, it's a super cool everyday shaped watch that you can tell your friends about. And really, whenever I have a Beta watch in my hand and someone comes around, I have something to tell them. Take the buckle, for example. We have an amazingly done buckle that was thought to be the Fortress buckle. It's not just a buckle that was put on a watch for no reason. Everything is coherent. All the image of the brand, of the watches, all the concepts are coherent, and this is something the industry sometimes is a bit lacking. Also, we're talking about a less than 2,000 euro watch for a manual wound, Swiss movement with so many details and that quality in every part. Come on, pretty hard to beat. Then a watch that is pretty dear to me because it's, I think, a super vintage collector kind of vibe. We have the Angles. So if you remember, if you have good memory, I presented you the Angles last summer because they unveiled some watches which I really liked. They were bigger. The overall mood was very similar, but different details. And here is the new one. Black on black, so black dial, gray numerals, Roman numerals. Really, really, really cool in my opinion. It gives me a bit of this ghost vibe, like C, not C. But of course, the watch is super wearable when you look at straight on point of view. And it gets just black with the Dauphine hand standing out when you have it on a wrist and you play with it. It can be a very cool tuxedo watch in my opinion. As much as it's 30 millimeters, I don't think you can tell. Like, it wears very cool. Plus the strap is integrated a bit in the case, so there's no lugs on it, which makes it look super sleek. And we have a Ronde movement, making it pretty cool, and 5.2 millimeters thick, which is pretty impressive. Plus, for what I know, they are working on a mechanical version as well. And of course, they want to keep it super thin, and I'm waiting for it. It gives me a vibe of really a collectible piece, a not art deco, but you know, this kind of Parisian vibe, more or less, that really, with the Chemin de Fer miniature, with the Roman numeral, with the Dauphine hands, I think they really understood collectors and the point of view of people that know watchmaking. Let's wrap it up with the biggest novelties of them all for this year, which is the Eclipse 2. For sure, knowing Sohaib's background in designing watches, knowing his taste, I can say that probably the Eclipse is, among all the watches, the one where he dares the most and where he tries to brings out and express himself the most in terms of playfulness and in terms of conceptualism. The Eclipse 2 shares a very similar aesthetic, or at least a super coherent aesthetic, to the Eclipse 1. As you can see, we have the same design elements on the watch, talking about case and lugs. Always the concave side, always this beautifully shaped lugs, and always a round case with a bit of playfulness along the whole dial. What is different is that this time, this looks a bit like a jumping hour, the previous model. It has the sliding hour, while this time they really used a jumping hour. They chose a model from Dubois de Pras, the BMJ01, and they included it in the watch, always keeping it automatic with the beautiful decorated oscillating mass, always having it in steel 37 millimeters with all the finishing you already have seen in the previous watch, but this time it's a different concept. Before, it was a lunar eclipse with the loom underneath and the rest of the watch making it look like a lunar eclipse. And this time we're playing a bit in the sense that we have the starry night in the desert. So we have a dial indicating the minutes that is done in aventurine. On top, we have two brass layers on the sides, resembling a bit like the sand of the desert. And we have the small seconds at 6 with the cerclage that are really standing out, with the hand that is beautifully shaped and beautifully polished on every aspect, both the second and the minute hand. And of course, we do have the jumping hour window at 12 with the crown at 6, which to me is a pretty cool design element. The watch wears well on the wrist. It gives me almost like a shaped watch vibe because of the lugs embracing the wrist. So a lot of shapes going on, always a very refined watch with a lot of character. It is around 4,000 Swiss francs, meaning it's also pretty convenient considering all the different finishing, considering the aventurine, considering the jumping hour and everything in it. They changed the strap to make it integrated in the case, making the watch really embracing, hugging your wrist. And I think what's most special is the fact that, to me, this watch is really making it a whole collection, keeping the DNA of the brand, keeping the DNA of the Eclipse itself, and really making Bida in every aspect a brand you should care about, and a brand that has a logic, a thought, a vision, and a well done development. And of course, I forgot to mention, is 9.5 millimeters, having an automatic movement and a jumping hour module, which makes it, in my opinion, pretty cool and I would say impressive. I'm really happy to talk to you about Bida because really I'm a big fan of the whole team, of the company, of the development they're having, and I think that it's one of the very few brands around watchmaking that can give you this much quality, this much attention to all the details, attention to the components, to the suppliers, and to how they build the watch and they thought and designed the watch that you have on the market for a super fair and reasonable price. Plus, you can really tell if you ever have the chance to visit them at one of the fairs. Here we are at Watches and Wonders Week 2025. They were exposing, they were at Beau Rivage. If you have the chance, go there because they're all super passionate. They all believe a lot in what they do. I mean, they should, of course, but they really do, and they really are able to transmit to you everything in it. Let me know your favorite watch of this video so far. Thank you to Hadar and Suhaib for having me presenting you all the watches. I am really going to tell you more about the brand in the future, so stay tuned. Thank you for following. Remember to follow them and see you next video.